90% of our thoughts are unconscious. 90%. Only 10% of people focus on personal development or spiritual development. That's statistics, right? I'm like shocked by it, but then again, I'm in the personal development world, so what do I know, right? But I mean, if that's what we're dealing with, right? A lot of coaching is uncovering false belief. And we do it by digging into like, what are you clear on? How are you managing your energy? How do you define productivity? And who are the people that you want to influence? And why are you here? Like, what's your meaning?
It is my pleasure to welcome Kate McKay. If you want to achieve greater fulfillment, increased clarity, energy, productivity, and more influence, this will be a good episode for you. Kate, welcome. It's good to have you.
I'm so psyched to be here, Jason. Thanks so much for having me.
So am I. Well, we met in the green room of a conference I was speaking at just 2 weeks ago in Dallas, and I just instantly liked what you had to say and wanted to bring you on the show to share some of your experience. And you have overcome a lot of hardship in life, and that has definitely built a great character. You're very in tune with the male side of things and what society is tragically doing to men, which is awful. Just take it wherever you want to go first, and we'll go from there.
I love it. So, Jason, I very rarely do I see people moving around in space with as much energy as me. So I completely honor you for being a high performer in the energy category. So you are clearly on a path. And I just want to say I completely validate you for that. So thank you. Thank you for everything you're doing, certainly in this world. So thank you. But yeah, so I wrote a book recently called Claim Your Inner Warrior, and it's going to be available on Amazon. But I wrote it because, listen, I grew up in a family of 9. I have 5 brothers. I've been a gym rat my whole life, and I'm used to the male energy. And what I've seen and what I've discovered, particularly through my high performance coaching work, is a tremendous, numbing down of men in the way they express themselves and how they show up in the world. And so this is just a really important conversation for me because, as you said, Jason, I've been through some tragedy. I've had some serious loss, particularly of men in my life. And that has driven me to commit to creating a safe space for men and a safe space to have conversation. We need men to be warriors. I need men to be warriors. And it's just really important to me.
What does that mean, warrior?
Such a good word. I did a podcast. I did 30 podcasts in 1 month, all with men in celebration of Movember, which is the men's mental health, suicide prevention, and cancer screening organization. Super amazing organization, Movember, November with a M. And one of my people that I interviewed said, a warrior, and he was real quiet. He said, a warrior is a man who has a heart behind his shield. And I was like, oh, that's so good, right? Because we need men to be able to tap into their emotional experience, because that's really, as the protector, as the warrior, as a man that's here to live into his sense of self and his role in this world. He's got to own that. He's got to own the experience. And Jason, this is the interesting thing. I coach men and women of all different ages. You ask an older guy, they describe something and you say, well, I'm saying like 50, 60, 70, whatever. And you're like, you're describing something's pretty intense. And you're like, wow, so how does that feel? And they're like, right? But if you ask a younger guy, hey, how does that feel? They're like, oh, really terrible, right? They're able to describe that emotional experience. Like, where do you feel in your body? Oh, my stomach. I said, I know, right? So, I had 2 sons, so I know what it's like to get into the gritty, but it's really getting into the tactical experience of emotion. Because listen, this is where good stuff happens. And, so we go up from the eyeballs up. Not much transformation is going to happen, not much authenticity, and really grit and determination is born in the heart, right? So we have to own that. We have to own that as men and as women for sure.
You're reminding me a little bit of Bob Bly and his sort of men's movement stuff and the fire in the belly. And, he used to have these retreats where, guys would be around a campfire and they would chant and do all this stuff. And were you influenced by his work?
I really wasn't. I think
Uh-huh.
it's just because I'm a gym rat and I'm
Yeah.
just so used, and I do a ton of reading. I'm like, I always would know exactly in the library where all the psychology books were. It was just my fascination of studying human nature.
Mhm.
I'm fascinated by how people work. But
Yeah.
really, more than anything else, it's just from having authentic conversation and
Mhm.
really getting into it. I built a multi-million-dollar company. I bought and sold gold on a theater degree. And that was based on the fact that I'm able to tap into authentic conversation with people, build trust, and be able to work either with the clients I'm buying and selling with, or I'm working with, high end, having to negotiate high end deals. And
Mhm.
so it's the ability to dance in all energy. And I think men and women are a lot more alike, but there are differences, and we have to honor them.
Mhm.
I'm all done with the feminization of men. My
Right.
children, my boys are extremely articulate emotionally, but they're dudes, they're boys.
Right.
And
It definitely seems like the genders are merging and there's an agenda behind that. I mean, it started a long, long time ago. The fashion world, Calvin Klein, certainly Kenneth Cole, all of these fashion companies, they've been trying to do this for many years. And, I wonder what's behind that. What's the thing there? Like, what is the motivation? I think it might be the same motivation that really feminism was promoting, and that is lower the birth rate. That's a good deal for the folks who believe humans are destroying the planet, that humans are not a resource, they're a cost. So there's that part of it, but it's also the part that I talked about during my speech, and you mentioned this to me about how the governments and the corporations want people to be apart. They don't want them to be together. It's a much better deal for them if everybody's single or if they're married, if they get divorced, because you have more people in the workforce. Getting women in the workforce has suppressed men's wages because it's simply adding half the population into the workforce. Of course, more supply, same amount of demand, you're going to have lower wages, right? Also the consumer economy, right? You can sell so much more stuff if people are occupying two households rather than just one.
Well, look who's doing most of the retail purchasing are women, right?
Right.
So, I mean, you look at just the studies and who is spending, and we need women working to fuel this 70% of our economy
Is consumer spending.
is consumer
Yeah.
spending. So we need people to be spending. And I that point about really creating that divide among people of any variety, whether it's Republican, Democrat, men or women, gay or straight,
Right.
black
Yeah.
or white.
Right.
There is so much division, but like, where's the unifying factor? Unifying factor is we're all human. We're all here to do great things. We're all unique, and we're all deserve to be heard. And I think that's the most important thing. One of the examples I write about in the book is I had a conversation with one of my clients. I'm like, just literally, like, you act like you're a little bit in the locker room. I guess I'm used to guys like that, but I'm like, all right, what do you need? What do you need, Mark? And he said, oh, he looked at me, looked down the ground, and looked at me again. And he was like, what do I need? Like, that's an interesting question. And I think he thought I was actually kidding. And I said, no. And the ticket is just to be quiet and listen. And I think that's another thing that men need more time. Women can process way quicker. We're just used to it because we're used to relational communication.
Right.
Men
And
are not.
multitasking. Women are
And
much better
Well,
multitaskers. Yeah.
this is the coolest study, Jason. When men go to a supermarket and they're like, all right, I have to get the yellow baking soda. They're going to go row by row. Where women just they can look and they can pull. We discern different. We visually see differently. Does that make it better or worse? No, it just makes it unique. So I think that's the piece. It's like, why can't we just honor the uniqueness and use that as the bridge for building great things and living in a great culture and a great society?
Yeah, it's strange. This agenda with these big corporations and the media is hard to understand. But anyway,
Yes, it is.
We're not going to solve that problem today.
No, we're not. Absolutely not.
How can people live a life of greater abundance, greater prosperity? You've got some teachings on that for sure in your books. Tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm one of 11, 9 children, and definitely the scarcity mindset. And so what is it? Money doesn't grow on trees. I mean, Jason, what was yours? What was your money story growing up?
Oh, there was a lot of money scarcity growing up, save money, don't spend, don't borrow. Certainly money doesn't grow on trees. I've heard that
Yeah.
before, fool and his money are soon parted, which is still true, by the way.
Yes.
That
Yes.
one
True.
hasn't changed. Yeah.
No, totally. Some of those beliefs that we want to hold on to, and there's a lot of them that are pretty false,
Yeah.
right? And oftentimes, like scarcity, prosperity is living in good luck or abundance, right? And money's energy. More energy we have, the more we can give away. And I really had to learn that when I built my gold company, because here I was coming from a scarcity mindset, and all of a sudden I'm managing a multi-million-dollar company at home with 3 young kids, flipping a grilled cheese with one hand and buying and selling gold on the open market with the other. So it was just a bizarre situation. And
Right.
what I learned is that something had to give, because my company wasn't going to grow if I still functioned from that scarcity place. And
what had to give?
Feelings of not being worthy. And this doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman.
Right.
We are birthed into core beliefs that we can agree or disagree on, but we have to uncover them. 90% of our thoughts are unconscious. 90%. Only 10% of people focus on personal development or spiritual development. That's statistics, right? I'm like shocked by it, but then again, I'm in the personal development world. So what do I know, right? But I mean, if that's what we're dealing with, right? A lot of coaching is uncovering false belief. And we do it by digging into like, what are you clear on? How are you managing your energy? How do you define productivity? And who are the people that you want to influence? And why are you here? Like, what's your meaning? And obviously that's flexible and fluid. There's some new agey concepts around that. But really every single day, you putting your head on the pillow saying, today I made a difference. And Jason, I know you do, because you're in the work. And I want to applaud you for that, just based on how much you're outputting. It's pretty impressive.
Well, thank you. And you too. I'd like to go back to this thing you just mentioned, which I think is just critically important, Kate. And that is money is energy. I have said that for a long time. It has a nature, doesn't it? And once you figure out that nature, it's kind of like figuring out a person. Maybe it's your significant other, maybe it's your kids or your parents or your employees or boss or whatever, right? And once you sort of understand them, you can work with them much better, right? But you can't work with them very well if you don't understand them, right?
100%.
And money is the same kind of thing, isn't it?
It is.
Once you understand its nature, it definitely has a way about it. It has an energy. You've kind of cracked the code to prosperity, right?
Yes, absolutely. I wrote a Secret Psychology of Wealth and also Living Sexy Rich. There are 2 ebooks I'm releasing, but there is basic systems. Now, one of them is more on just like, all right, what's your cash flow? But the other piece is, where is the breakdown on your sense of worthiness, that you feel that you're not worth it, that you either have to give it away or you got to hoard it, right? And I think where I really saw that was I took my kids to Haiti on a humanitarian trip. I don't know what I was thinking, Jason. 3 kids, 2 like the most dangerous country in the world, a single mom, like me and my girlfriend were both.
That was probably a wake-up call for them.
Oh my gosh. But what I'll tell you, the most amazing thing was watching the wake up of my children. So here we are in a culture of poverty, abject poverty, nothing like I've ever seen. Important for them to see. And they're all white culture they were growing up in, right? And you know what they saw? Happiness. You know what they saw? Peace. You know what they saw? Family unity. You know what they saw? Little boys holding little babies on their hips as men, growing up to be men. So I would say that was far more shifting for my children than the money or the services that we provided there. And I think that is a humbling experience for my children, and therefore from their mother's view, incredibly transformational for me.
Okay, so gaining perspective, definitely one of the steps, right?
Huge. Yep, absolutely. And I think, honestly, I'd never be where I was if I wasn't working with the coach. It's like, you need someone that's going to hold you to a higher standard, right? I mean, you hanging out with you, being in the green room at a conference, you have to pay for your higher self. A lot of people don't want to do it. It costs energy. It costs resources to play a higher game. It just does. I mean, do you agree, Jason?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And what you're paying for, this is one thing you mentioned, about having a coach or having, being around the right people. Most of us didn't just fall into that. I certainly didn't. But, once I started earning some money, I just bought my way in. I mean, frankly, that's the way you accelerate your growth. You just simply buy your way in. So
100%.
you,
I
you
love the
buy,
transparency.
you go to that conference, you
Yep.
buy access to the green room, you pay, it's kind of a ridiculous price usually, because you're certainly not going to do it mathematically and say, well, let me see in the green room at this conference, if I buy the elite ticket, they're going to serve coffee in there, so I won't have to buy coffee at the coffee bar, and they'll have snacks in there, so I won't have to buy snacks, and I get lunch included. If you did the math that way, it would never pencil.
Ever.
But what it's about is who you meet.
Absolutely.
Right.
So are
Same with
you
a
naturally
mastermind
an
group.
extrovert?
Yeah.
Are you
Same.
naturally an extrovert? No.
I don't know.
Or yes.
I
Ambivert?
definitely like my alone time
Me
and
too.
solitude. No
Yeah,
question.
me too. It's where we do all our good thinking, you know? Well, it's like we're in the back there. It's like George Gammon. I didn't talk to him that day, but then again, I listened to one of his podcasts and he's talking about the men, the women, and relationship and dating. And I'm like, wait, how did I miss that opportunity in the green room? So I'm kicking myself a little bit.
Yep.
I'm still going to find him though. Absolutely.
Yeah, good stuff. So other things on the nature of money, the energy of money, how to use it, how to channel it to live in more abundance.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. That really is the community that you build around yourself, because you have to have someone else holding that higher watch. And you are, it's a cliche expression, but you are the 5 people that you're hanging out with. I grew up with very minimal resources, and I had to reach out and I had to believe that there was something more for me than that. That's no easy task. So it's having faith. The faith has to be bigger than the fear, because sometimes knees clattering, teeth clattering to reach for something, and being uncomfortable. A big piece of embracing. Listen, I compete in bikini. I'm in my 50s. It's like, if that isn't courageous, I don't know what is. But I always put myself in that place of being uncomfortable. And I would say to all you viewers and listeners, be uncomfortable. Be around people that make you feel a little bit uncomfortable. The comfort zone is death spiral. And that's all pretty much that's all I got to say about that.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. You've got to constantly stretch.
Mm-hmm.
No question.
And invest, invest. That's why I'm part of the group and why I'm glad that you're in my tribe, because you have your areas of expertise that I want to lean in on. I want to refer people to you. I want all of us to rise, because we're only as good as all of us rising. And that's really the ticket. Who are you here to affect? Who are you here to influence? Why are you here? You got to discover that for yourself, for sure.
So this may be a strange direction to just wrap up the interview today. But Kate, I want to ask you about, because you wrote a book about clean eating and fitness, and you're obviously very into that. Food is so incredibly important because it determines our mood. It determines how we feel, how much energy we have. If we don't have energy, we can't do anything. That's the currency of life, right? We talked about the energy of money, but just sheer physical energy, right? Tell us about your philosophies around fueling our bodies.
Absolutely. So I've been competing since I was 43 as a bikini competitor, as crazy as that is. And my father was a really great model of what it meant to live a life of moderation. And it's one area. Energy management is a place that I have high mastery in, because I realize how crucially it is important. And ultimately self-respect, like, it begins at the lips. So if you know the way that you're going to serve this holy, crazy, unique vessel that you have, it has to begin there. I mean, there's a mindset to it, and then there's a nutritional component. It's why I wrote Living Sexy Fit. I would go to a conference and I talk about prosperity and building, a multi-million-dollar company. People would come up to me like, "Oh, great talk." And they'd be like, "How do you get those arms?" Or "What do you eat?" And I'm like, looking around going, what? Like, I just embody health. And it's not an ego thing. It's just who I am as a person, because I know I'm here to be called for great things. I'm a warrior. And so I think that that's a big piece of it. Is energy management is everything: physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental energy management. And nutrition is absolutely key.
How about some specific steps there in terms of nutrition? I mean, there's a million different philosophies on this stuff,
Absolutely.
and whatever we believe today will probably be a different trend in 10 years.
Or
For a
not,
lot of us.
right? I'm not
Yeah.
big into the, like, I don't pitch like the fasting and the keto and all of that. You got to keep your protein up. And I think it's very difficult to do on vegan. I know people do it. I think it's very, very difficult. I tried it. I never looked more horrible. So it's high protein and healthy fat and healthy carbs. 80% of it's clean. 20% enjoy yourself. Food is to be used as celebration. It's like bread is called the staff of life for a reason. It's a sensual pleasure. Food is wonderful, but how do we enjoy it in ways that honor our body? Honor yourself in the process. I think that's truly the most important piece.
Well, I think that's actually one of the things that's kind of a misnomer. It's retraining oneself and weaning oneself off of junky food, because high quality food actually tastes very good.
So
You,
good.
you know, it's not like you're really giving things up, but you do have to retrain yourself with a
Mhm.
new belief system. You sort of have to retrain your tongue, right? And that's the same thing with money as we're talking about that. There are just habits. And once you get into these good habits, they're not hard, they're just different.
Different.
You get used to them,
Mm,
and they're okay. It's not like you're
right.
making some big sacrifice all the time. Although I think it's the switch that's the hard part, right? So if you have bad money habits, if you have bad food habits, if you have bad exercise habits, it's that retraining part that's the hard part. And
Mhm.
that's what reminds me of Jim Rohn's great quote: "The pain of discipline weighs ounces, the pain of regret weighs tons."
So
And
true.
so you got to get through that first part. And then when it becomes just a part of life and a habit, it's not a hardship anymore.
And you have to understand that there's an intrinsic and an extrinsic motivation. I want to look good for this event, or those are only going to get you 20% of the way. You got to know why you want it. And it goes back to that. I can't give you the diet. What I can do is ask you some powerful questions that will get you to your why, so that you can make that shift, because it's a core belief. No diet's going to fix a false core belief is I don't deserve it. I'm always going to be fat. Whatever the story is that you hit rewind and repeat on. But I'm here to say you're worthy. And you know it in your heart. If you're listening to this and you've listened all the way to the end, you know you are worthy, and you know you want more. You wouldn't be listening to me and Jason if you didn't think so. So thank you so much for joining us today and playing with us in this crazy, amazing space.
Give out your website, Kate.
Yeah, right on. So it's kate-mckay.com. I am Kate McKay on Instagram. My new book is Claim Your Inner Warrior: How to Live a Life of Courage and Embrace Your Personal Power, available on Amazon. It's especially for men and the women who love them.
Good stuff. Kate McKay, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Jason.